In the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, there's a great story. Two people are offered cigarettes, and one of them says, "No thank you, I'm trying to quit." And the other person says, "No thanks, I don't smoke." The difference in these responses seems tiny, but is actually massive and illustrates a powerful force that dictates much of how our lives transpire and whether we accomplish the goals we are striving for or not. That force is identity. Many of us get stuck in trying to quit, or trying to start, or trying to be something, and we never quite find our way towards being or having the things we strive for. We find ourselves perpetually stuck in a state of lacking and chasing those things that we desire. But the good news is that it doesn't have to be this way, and if we apply a few simple changes to our methodology and our mindset, we can change from being in that state of lack, that state of chasing, to that state of being what it is we want to be in the world. So let me tell you the story about how being stuck in an identity trapped me in my own head, costing me money, time, energy for years, and how by applying 3 simple steps you can avoid the same pitfalls and shift your identity from what it is now, how you think the world has to be, to a completely new, freeing way of seeing the world. So, I used to work at a restaurant, and I was hired as a host. Within the hierarchy of this restaurant, there were hosts, there were food runners, and then there were servers. Servers made the most money, they had the most quote-unquote prestige within the restaurant world at least, and most people who were hired as hosts wished to ascend the ranks and become a server. But as much as I wanted to be a server, I also had a certain level of apprehension. I wasn't sure how I was supposed to deal with large groups of people, how I was supposed to juggle all the different orders, manage all these tables. It gave me a certain level of apprehension. And so I did, what any good restaurant employee does, which is pretty much show up for work and do your job to the best of your abilities and wait to be promoted. So eventually a new guy was hired, and this guy had a lot of energy, and I'd been working there for a little while. I was kind of well known, but I was still working as a host. And this new guy had all this energy, and crucially, even though he was hired as a host, he went out of his way to ask at every opportunity, "Hey, could I try serving? Could I try food running? Could I try doing these harder, in my mind, things?" This created within me a mixture of jealousy and anger, because I thought, hey, that's not fair. This guy's breaking the rules. He's going out of line. He was hired after me and he's trying to ascend the ranks faster than me. That's not how this is supposed to work. And this is the crucial first step to understand where we get into the identity trap. I had defined myself as a host. I defined myself. Sure, that was my job title, so I was externally defined, but I internally believed that my job was to be a host. In addition to that, I had my own preconceptions about my people skills or how I'm going to make these people happy, my own worries and insecurities that prevented me from taking those same steps. The reason that I had not also ascended the ranks that quickly was merely my own interpretation of reality, not the objective facts. And this would be proven later in my own experience. In that moment, I was stuck in the identity of being a host. I was thinking that, my job is not that of a server. I don't do those things. I'm not that kind of person. And when we talk about how to kind of transcend, how to step out of these past identities, the first step is to become aware of the identity you are in. And one of the easiest ways to do this, it's not always pleasant, but it's incredibly effective, is to notice the things that make you angry, that make you jealous. These things that bother us generally reflect our own internal insecurity, often linked towards where we think we belong and where we wish we could be. In other words, I thought of myself as here, and I desired to be up here, but I'm afraid to be up here. And I see this other guy, he's not playing by the same rules. He comes in, he just wants to be up here. He just thinks, oh, I can be up here, no big deal. And he just walks up there. I am stuck in the mental story of being a host, but also my own fears, my own anxieties, my own worries about being a server. How am I going to handle that? Oh, it's going to be difficult. What am I going to do? I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I'm ready. I created the separation. The separation, this difference, only existed in my head, as evidenced by the new guy who came in and just waltzed his way to the place that he thought he belonged. It was fine. I could have, and later did, as you will find out in this story, do the same thing. But I didn't at the time know it. So the very first step is to observe within yourself these things that are bothering you, these things that make you feel like, I feel stuck. You probably do feel stuck, but it's because we are over-identifying our potential with our current state. And so eventually this guy got promoted to a server. Finally, maybe a couple months later, I did as well. And he went on to succeed, did well. I didn't. I was a good enough server, but it gave me such a tremendous amount of fear and anxiety that I eventually went and told my boss, I don't want to be a server anymore. Just keep me as a food runner. I make okay money. I'll be the medium tier person, but I don't want the stress and responsibility of that top level. This is an example of my identification with my own limitations pushing away a perceived benefit. The stress and anxiety that came with being a server were just a byproduct of the story I believed about myself. Feelings of unworthiness, feelings of having to people please, these fundamental limiting beliefs that I identified with, in addition to being a host. These beliefs of the way I thought the world had to be shaped my conceived potential. I started to reject opportunities to make more money, to have more freedom, to stay in what I thought my lane was, what I thought was what I deserved, what I thought was more right for me. And once again, you can see how I was creating the separation. I had an idea of what it meant to be the greatest server. Now, there were servers who I knew at that time who weren't that good. And I knew I could be better than them, but I still didn't think I could live up to the picture of the ideal server that I wanted to be in my head. So I said, you know what? Screw it, I'm not gonna try. I had been promoted to the place where I had the opportunity, but I rejected myself. And we do this all of the time in relationships. Oh, that person's out of my league. In job opportunities. Oh, it's so competitive. I could never get it. In exercise. Oh, I could never be in shape like that. I can't eat healthy. I can't take care of myself. But we could all be like that guy who just waltzes in and says, why can't I be up there? I can do the same things. Like, I'm a person like everybody else. I can just do the things. And you can, because it's not actually that difficult. The separation is something we create when we feel that sense of lack, when we feel that sense of, oh, I'm down here, I need it, it'd be great if I had it. We put things on a pedestal and then we deny ourselves. And you might think that that's a stupid thing to do, worrying about being a host versus a server at a restaurant. And it is a stupid thing to do. It's a pointless thing to worry about where I unnecessarily limited myself. I put the brakes on my own progression. I cut my own pay by like $10 an hour voluntarily because of what I believed I was worth. And that sounds ridiculous, but I guarantee that the vast majority of people, probably you, are doing the same thing in your life right now, where there are things that you know you could strive for, but they make you feel a little uncomfortable. They make you feel a little, I'm not that kind of person, or it'd be difficult. I don't know how to do it just yet. We take that limitation and we allow it to inform our decision when we could simply allow ourselves to be. And this is the second step, is giving yourself permission to be different. Once you become aware of the identity that you are stuck in my case, being a host, but also the limitations, the feelings that I wasn't enough, that I was unworthy, realizing that all of that psychological junk was just holding me down and it wasn't based in reality. When you are free of those things, which, by the way, I have a whole video on letting go, check that out. But when you are free of those things, then you no longer have this pedestalized thing where, oh, that girl, that job, that vacation, it would be so amazing, but I'm down here. I can't have that. Instead, it's normal. It is natural. You stop pushing things out of your own life. The resistance we feel has nothing to do with the task, but has everything to do with our interpretation of the task. My version of serving that I was worried about was the picture in my head. I wasn't worried about measuring up to reality. I was distracted by the giant scary picture I had in my head. I was so worried about being the best server. I was so worried about dealing with all these people. I was so anxious about the concept of serving itself that I energetically and eventually literally rejected it as a concept. I said, no, it's not for me. I can't do it. I chose my limitation over the thing that made me slightly uncomfortable and would have led to growth. That's very normal. A lot of people do that, but it's something to be aware of. Step 2 is giving yourself permission to be the new thing, to let go of that limitation, to be wrong about who you thought you were, and to change into being the way you would prefer. Very often we tend to sit around and we wait for other people to give us permission. Step 2 is give yourself permission. Stop waiting. Be like that guy who just showed up and saw the job he wanted and said, why can't I be that way? I want to be a server, so I'm going to act like I'm a server. I'm going to start doing the things the servers do. And while a long list of hosts sat in line getting jealous and angry about how this guy got more attention and more promotions, he was doing the things that the managers wanted servers to do. So he got promoted. He was being it while everybody else wanted it. And wanting it was creating the separation. Wanting it was saying, I don't have it, I can't be it, but I'm going to sit around and wait for somebody to pick me to get my shot. Start to notice this in life, by the way. You will be amazed at how many people just are sitting passively and waiting and hoping that somebody or something comes by and chooses them. It's absolutely absurd. Choose yourself. That by itself, if you can just consistently choose yourself in life, you don't even worry about anything else. You'll be fine. That's all you really need to do is give yourself permission to transcend your old identity, see what you want, choose yourself, and allow yourself to have it. Instead of pushing it out of your life because it doesn't gel with your old way of being, you can have a new way of being. You can transcend those old limitations, pick yourself, and you'll be fine. And finally, after like 3 years of having consigned myself, energetically and literally, pushed away the opportunity to improve and move up, I chose myself. I said, you know what? I want to try to be a server again. And that brings us to step 3, which is to start to be it. And I went to my boss and I told him, hey, I would like to be a server again. I think I'm ready. And within a matter of a week and a half, I was working a full-time server schedule. I was making significantly more money than I had been before. I had more self-confidence than I had before. And other areas of my life started opening up as well because I released my intense grip on holding on to my past limitations. When I released that intense grip, all of a sudden everything opened up. I was making more money. I felt better about myself. All of a sudden, I had a girlfriend. All of these things were already in my environment. I already knew the girl. I already worked at the same place. All of the opportunities already existed. But energetically, I had been stuck. I was the one who was rejecting them, not the other way around. I was putting myself down here and saying all of these things are out of my reach, I can't have them. I was creating, through my identity, the separation. I was saying, I can't have that. Pushing it away. Stop that. Don't do it. Instead, realize there's really nothing wrong with you, and generally, you can overcome most limitations. It's only our psychological clinging to, well, the stories about why we're not good enough or why we can't do certain things or I'm not a people person or I'm not good with this or I can't do that or I'm not creative, I'm not blah, 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 blah. We have an ongoing negative narrative that determines so much of what we think we can achieve, and it is bullshit. It's meaningless. And once you realize that, if you fundamentally actually implement that, your life will never be the same. Like I say, even just a hint of implementing it in my own life, this is several years ago now, but within the span of weeks, I went from feeling unhappy and unfulfilled to challenging myself, having worked the biggest and most prestigious sections in the whole restaurant. I was making $20 an hour more than I had been before. I was in a brand new relationship that I didn't know had been a possibility. Give yourself permission to be that new identity. And it might, of course, feel weird at first. Like, there was still certainly some anxiety about embodying the new identity. I still didn't 100% think I deserved it. But the more you embody it, the more you practice, the more you simply be it, the more you will realize it's fine. This is normal. This is natural. It's not something you have to push away. And this goes for relationships. This goes for any job, not just serving. If you let yourself relax the intense grip on how you have been being in the past and give yourself permission to take advantage of the opportunities that already surround you. Like I said, I made more money, I got a new relationship, but I didn't change anything. My surroundings were exactly the same. The thing that changed was my fundamental relationship, what I allowed myself to have. When I became open to new opportunities, all of a sudden, all of these things appeared in my life. They had always been there, but I had been blind. I had been looking at life like this. Open your perspective a little bit. And the same thing can and will happen to you if you give yourself permission first to see, without judgment, to acknowledge what identities you might be stuck in right now. Just observe your own patterns. See what bothers you. See what makes you anxious and insecure, the things you hate, and ask yourself, why? Where am I clinging to the past? What is making me feel this way when these things happen? Generally, it's being stuck in a past identity that is not helping us. Then start giving yourself permission to change. Say, you know what? I don't need to hold on to these things. I can just as easily embody this new identity. I can be like that guy who just shows up and doesn't see a good reason why he should wait in line. Why should he wait for somebody else to pick him? Pick yourself. And then thirdly, start being it. Just start doing it. Start to embody it. And sure, it might be difficult, it might be challenging, it might be scary, but what you'll realize is that with practice, it kind of wears off and you start to build a new identity. This is a big part of the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. He says, every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. Stop creating your own separation. Give yourself permission to be it and to have it. That's hard. It doesn't have to be hard, but it can be at first. Follow the steps. Give yourself that permission. Give yourself some grace. Practice letting go. Free your mind, free yourself, and I promise the results will speak for themselves. Now, if you want to know, once you've uncovered some of these limiting beliefs, but they maybe aren't going away so easily, how do I get rid of them? How do I let them go? Check out this video right here on how to let go. It'll tell you all you need to know. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.